germane, and the chair does not declare it to be not germane, how does a member of the body bring that to attention and fix it?
All right, an excellent question. If an amendment is not germane and the chair does not rule it out of order on his or her own authority, which if it is not germane, the chair should, then you raise what's called a point of order. I will get into that in a little bit when I get into motions that are incidental motions. That's the basic answer to your question. Any other questions right now? All right, moving up the order, we have commit. This is where you can send a given motion to a committee. Someone's moved to purchase property to the east. Mr. Chairman, I move to submit the motion to a committee of 5 to be appointed by the chair for additional study. Do we have the money? You know, do we need permits? Yada, yada, yada. And then, therefore, you put that off to a committee. And if you have a standing committee, that's a real estate committee, then it would go to it. This is debatable. This is amendable. Postpone, definitely. This is when you've got business tied up, you're getting into, you need to postpone it. You want to purchase a property, you think it's going to take a lot of time. Mr. Chairman, I move to postpone the motion to purchase the property until our next month's meeting. It's seconded, it's debatable, and then you can decide whether or not you're going to postpone it. All right, limit or extend debates, pretty self-explanatory. You're debating whether or not you're going to purchase the property. Somebody say, I move to limit each speaker to 3 minutes each. This requires a 2/3 vote, and it is not debatable. Call the question. Now, this is a frequently used motion. What the motion does is it ends debate, it ends amendments, you immediately put the pending question to a vote. When you move to call the question, there's generally 2 errors that commonly occur with it. Assume you have the motion before the body to purchase the property immediately to the east. There's debate going back and forth. Somebody thinks, okay, I think that we've heard enough. So they rise, Mr. Chairman, I call the question. Or I move to call the question. And a common error is an inexperienced chair will say, the question has been called. We will now vote on whether or not we're going to purchase the property next door. That is not correct. The question has not been called. The chair should say, there has been a motion to call the question. Is there a second? Assume there is. Now this is an important point. In the Republican Party, in a convention, it requires a majority vote. Everywhere else, it's a 2/3 vote. So if you have a precinct convention, a district or county convention, or state convention, to call the question requires a majority vote. Everywhere else, it's a 2/3 vote. The other common mistake that's made is you have someone call the question, the chair properly calls on the vote, assume you have 2/3 in favor. All right, the question has been called. The chair erroneously thinks the main motion has been decided and moves on to another item of business. I mean, you don't really realize what it's like until you have chaired a meeting. Then you realize all the pressure's on you, and it can kind of get away from you quicker than you think. By the way, if you ever chair a meeting, I recommend you speak in what I call full parliamentary sentences. It helps keep you on track. Have a little piece of paper and note what the main motion is. Oh, there's an amendment. Write the amendment down so you know where you're at. And always take the body with you. If you know where you're at, make sure that you take the body with you. In other words, let them know. You'd rather tell them twice what they're voting on and them understand again. Not to have told them the first half and everybody going around, what are we voting on? Take them with you. It makes a big difference. That's basically it for calling the question. It does pertain to the immediately pending question. You're going to purchase the property next door. There's an amendment that is to convert it into a parking lot. There's another amendment to insert the word lighted. You move to call the question in its basic form. You're only going to affect the immediately pending question. What's the immediately pending question? Whether it's going to be lighted or not. If you want the whole enchilada voted on to call the question, Mr. Chairman, I call the question on all pending questions. If that is adopted, you vote up or down on whether it's lighted, up or down on whether or not you're going to convert it to a parking lot, and up and down on whether or not you're going to convert it, or going to buy the property at all. Any questions on that? Our question of privilege. We're moving into what are called, as a group, they're called privilege questions. Question of privilege is one that, by the way, I apologize. Question of privilege and call for orders are reversed. They should be in reverse order. I put them incorrect. The question of privilege is normally a lot of times handled infrequently. Let's say I'm talking and there's doors open and somebody's out there with a jackhammer working on the parking lot. Mr. Chairman, we can't hear unless the windows are closed. That's a point of privilege. It's a question of privilege. Some questions of privilege deal with motions. And if they do, there's two parts. One, you're dealing with the question of privilege itself. Two, you're going to deal with the motion. Basically, the question of privilege is like a cut line test. Let's say you go to the movies, there's a long line to buy tickets. The question of privilege allows you to go to the front of the line. But once you get there, you still have to buy your ticket. But once you make the question of privilege, Mr. Chairman, the matter that we're discussing has gotten into some sensitive areas. I rise to a question of privilege with apologies to our guest. I move that we go into executive session. The chair rules on whether or not it's a question of privilege, whether or not you get to go to the front of the line with that motion. In this case, in all likelihood, the chair will rule that it is a question of privilege. We'll now vote on whether or not we will go into executive session. Another point I want to bring out at this point is, if the chair senses that there's a motion before the body, it's non-controversial, the chair can say, if you'll realize that this motion is going to pass, the chair can say, if there's no objection, we'll go into executive session. Hearing none, we're going to executive session. I would ask all of the guests and visitors, please be excused. When we come out of executive session, we will let you know. So this, if there is no objection, is a nice shortcut to get through business. If you're a member of the body and the chair says, if there's no objection, and for whatever reason you object, you really say, Mr. Chairman, I object, and now you go through the formal process of having to vote on a particular motion. Robert states if there's silence if there is no objection and it's silence, it doesn't necessarily mean everybody's agreeable to it. It may mean those who would disagree basically believe it's not a hill worth dying for, basically. It's not a battle worth fighting. We just let it go. I don't like it, okay, I'm not, and that happens a lot. And you're going to find that you'll pick